It's October 27th. It's a Thursday. This Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily. Check them out at cowboystatedaily.com for the most amount of original Wyoming news content anywhere. As we wrap up the week and head into the all-important Halloween weekend, we're going to talk about what we can expect. After a little unsettled weather today in some areas, a generally quiet stretch of weather is coming. From Friday through Halloween Monday and probably through Tuesday, there's just really not much going on. We do have a storm system, a small one, over Colorado. It'll be producing some snow and rain shower activity in Colorado and surrounding areas, but it's sliding south and east out of the area. So by tomorrow and through Monday, most of the western United States going to have a pretty quiet pattern. This means good weather coming for Halloween as it stands right now. We still expect those changes coming mid to late next week, but from Friday through probably Tuesday, for hunters, for travelers, for outdoor interests, looks pretty good. It won't be really warm. It'll be a little windy at times, but for the last days of October and the first day or two for November, really quite a good stretch of weather. Here's a beautiful shot taken earlier this week of a stacked lenticular clouds from Dave Bell in Pinedale. You get into the time of year now where the jet stream winds are stronger and stronger, and this is where you get these lenticular lens-shaped clouds, and sometimes you have just spectacular displays like this. These clouds form very high in the wave that forms as winds go over the higher mountains. So these winds coming over the mountains cause a wave, and the top of the wave is where these clouds form. That's why they have a lens shape to them. And it almost is like they're stationary. It's because they are, because the clouds form at the peak of the wave. And this is one reason when you see these clouds and you're about ready to get on an airplane, hold on tight, it's going to be a little turbulent. Taking a look at today's satellite imagery, two bright areas of clouds to show you. We've got the disorganized low right here. So under these clouds, there's going to be some rain and snow shower activity. The system is kind of going this way with this northern part splitting off a little bit. A lot of this right here is mid and high level cloudiness or some wave clouds or lenticulars off the northern Rockies and the Cascades. That looks pretty threatening, but there's really not going to be much weather with that area of clouds there. And then you can see this area right here of drier high pressure beginning to build on in. But we did see some snow overnight. This is on Highway 130 between Laramie and Saratoga over the Snowy Range Pass. Passes still open, but if you're headed over the mountain passes, this shot looks a lot like the other shots of mountain passes in Wyoming and Colorado this morning. There's the upper level low swinging through the Four Corners area, but taking a track this way, and you can see that other piece breaking off to the north and east. So this is going to lead to a very quiet stretch of weather this weekend. This is the chart for 6 p.m. Monday. So we have a broad area of high pressure over the west. This is why Halloween is going to end up being a nice looking stretch of weather. And you can see that between Friday and Monday, almost no significant precipitation in between those black lines there. So there's just going to be a whole lot of nothing going on. Only the far Pacific Northwest and the southeast and eastern parts of the U.S. will be wet. They'll be wet on Halloween. We will not be. So we're going to have ourselves a happy Halloween when we take a look at temperatures and conditions across the region, really looking pretty good. Now, I want to talk about the long-range forecast and what we're watching. We talked about the recurving typhoon yesterday out in the western Pacific. That still looks like it's going to be developing. But as we get into the cold season, we really concentrate on what's going on in the Pacific. And for those of you new to the podcast, I'm going to bring up a new term for you because we're going to be talking about this during the winter season. We're going to be talking about oscillations. The Eastern Pacific Oscillation is what we're going to talk about today. There's other ones I'm going to talk about. But the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, or what we call the EPO, is a real important indicator in terms of trying to figure out what's going to happen in the long term. Without getting too deep into the weeds, basically it's a variation in atmospheric flow from the Eastern Pacific, across the Pacific, and across the Alaska area. And when we have these positive phases, most of North America is in a warmer, milder phase. But when we go into a negative phase of the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, that's a signal. It's a signal that North America is likely going to be turning colder. Basically and simply put, we talk about this all the time. When you get a ridge of high pressure in the eastern Pacific, that is a negative eastern Pacific oscillation. That is a cold signal from the Rockies to the Great Lakes and other parts of the U.S. as well. So we always want to keep an eye on, is the phase going negative or positive in the Pacific? As we get into the cold season, this becomes very important. We don't talk much about it in the summer because really in the summer, it's not as of a big factor. And this is what usually happens in a negative EPO pattern. You can see right here all of the cold in Canada and the lower 48 states, while Alaska, relative to average, warms up. That's because that ridge forms just like this. So when we take a look at the European model that's going out into November, anything that's south of, below that zero line, is a negative phase of the Eastern Pacific Oscillation. You see this dip right here? This is the cold shot that we're expecting by the middle to the end of next week. Colder conditions as it goes negative. Then it goes positive. But look at this. This is right around the 6th or 7th of November, all the way up past November 11th. See how that negative phase comes in? This is why we're thinking that the early part of November is likely going to be trending colder for a lot of the west and central areas of the United States as well. And that will probably then move east later in the month. Have yourself a great Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.